It was a Monday morning, so quiet you could hear the neighborhood holding its breath. No kids roamed the streets with clipboards. No violation notices fluttered on doors. The air felt heavy, like a storm was brewing, and I knew exactly who was stirring it: Carol, our HOA president with an iron grip and a vendetta against anyone who dared cross her. I'd seen this calm before, the kind that meant she was plotting something nasty. By noon, her hammer dropped. Every household that signed our petition against her ridiculous rules got a letter stamped with the HOA's fancy seal, announcing they were under Indy VY dual compliance RE-VY-EW. It was a made-up term, menacing enough to spook anyone who didn't know better, and Carol was counting on that. The notices threatened inspections and restrictions on property access for non-compliance. Neighbors showed up at my door, clutching those letters like they were EVY tie-in notices. Old Mrs. Jenkins looked like she'd seen a ghost, trembling as she asked if she'd lose her home over a bird feeder. A young couple, barely settled with their newborn, worried their stroller on the porch would cost them everything. Carol wasn't just fighting back, she was weaponizing fear, tossing out any shred of fairness. I told everyone to stay calm, reminding them our petition was solid, backed by EVY Denke and the Oversight Board's attention. But fear spreads like wildfire, and Carol was pouring gasoline. She'd ruled our little sub-VY town like a dictator, not with fairness, but with endless paperwork and petty rules. Now she was turning up the heat, hoping we'd crack. I was done playing nice. That afternoon, I called Lisa and Tom, and we planned a public meeting not at my house, but in the community park. No more hiding. We printed flyers, handed them out during evening walks, and people showed up. Chairs unfolded, lemonade poured, and someone even brought a microphone. Tom stood up, reading off the absurd citations Carol had slapped on him, like the one for excessive patriotism, because he flew a flag on Memorial Day. The crowd laughed, clapped, and started sharing their own stories. It wasn't a protest, it was a release, a moment where we realized we weren't alone. Then Carol showed up, flanked by her two loyal HOA goons, her face tight with rage. She refused a chair and waved off Lisa's offer of the mic. Instead, she held up a stack of papers, claiming urgent announcements. Tom cut her off, his voice booming. "Unless it's an apology and your resignation, we don't care." The crowd roared, and Carol's face turned red. She snapped that we were breaking HOA Code 7.3 unauthorized gatherings. But Lisa, always one step ahead, handed her a highlighted copy of the bylaws allowing resident-organized meetings. Carol crumpled it and stormed off to scattered applause. That night, my security cameras caught her creeping around my house with a flashlight and clipboard. She photographed my trash bins, tapped my window like some ghost, and scribbled furiously before disappearing. By morning, a citation was taped to my door: unauthorized motion lights causing light pollution. It was laughable those lights were approved years ago. I emailed the footage to the Oversight Committee with a note: more proof of harassment. Within hours, they launched a misconduct investigation into Carol's leadership. 2 days later, she went nuclear. She called the sheriff's department, reporting me for domestic disturbance and community harassment, claiming I was inciting a rebellion and running an illegal operation from my home. She said neighbors feared me, that I was turning the sub-VY town into a mob. What she didn't know was that my husband, the VYD, the sheriff, took the call. He'd routed it to his office and flagged her as a potential harasser under the county's nuisance statute. That evening, the VYD came home early, his face caught between amusement and disbelief. "She tried to have you arrested today," he said. I blinked. "What?" He nodded. Said, "You're disrupting the peace." I told her I'd take it up with the sheriff, then reminded her that's me. I barely slept that night, not from fear, but from the thrill of watching Carol unravel. Every desperate move was exposing her. By the end of the week, the showdown came. Carol called an emergency HOA meeting to address community disorder. The hall was packed. Residents who'd never shown up before came, some holding old violation notices, others just drawn by the drama. Carol opened with a speech about preserve VY and community values, glaring at me like I was the VYL herself. Then she made her fatal mistake. She moved to suspend all HOA PRIVY legacies for me and the petition signers. Gasps filled the room. Before the board could act, I stood, calm as could be, and asked for the floor. Carol objected, but the board overruled her. I walked to the projector, took a deep breath, and played the footage of her slashing my tires. The room went dead silent. Then erupted murmurs, shocked laughter, then outrage. "You did that and fine her after," one guy shouted. Another demanded why she was still in charge. Carol stammered, accusing me of faking the VY Deo, but the damage was done. The board suspended her on the spot, pending investigation, by a landslide vote. She stood frozen, then stormed out, the doors slamming like a judge's gavel. The next morning, the neighborhood felt alive again. No notes, no citations, no Carol prowling with her smug strut. I sipped coffee on my porch, watching kids bike and neighbors wave like they were free. But I knew Carol wouldn't go quietly. That afternoon, the VYD got a call at the sheriff's office. His jaw tightened. "You won't believe this," he said, hanging up. Carol had filed a harassment claim against me, requesting a protective order. She accused me of stalking her, orchestrating a smear campaign, even leading a domestic insurgency. She named VYD as a co-conspirator. I laughed so hard I nearly dropped my mug. Her claims were wild drones over her house, floodlights as psychological warfare, neighbors terrorizing her on dog walks. It was like a bad MOVYE, but to Carol, she was the heroine SAVY in the neighborhood. The VYD said her claim needed a deputy's VYEW, but he'd stay out of it. I wasn't worried, I had nothing to hide. Still, I knew Carol was baiting me, hoping I'd snap. I didn't. I stayed calm, documented everything, and acted the opposite of her accusations, while VYing to neighbors and steering clear of her drama. 2 days later, Carol went live on Facebook, calling it Reclaiming Our Community. Surrounded by binders, she smiled like a politician, claiming she was the VY Tim of a corrupt HOA board under my control. She held up my Lemonade social flyer as proof of harassment. The comments tore her apart. She slashed tires and cries about Lemonade. Her story was falling apart. Meanwhile, the Oversight Committee's audit dropped a bombshell. Carol had funneled HOA fees into personal projects, paid herself for fake consulting, and sent contracts to her cousin's companies. She built a petty empire with our dues. At the next meeting, the treasurer, once her ally, apologized for trusting her blindly. The room shifted from anger to resolve. You were rebuilding. A certified letter soon confirmed Carol's removal from the board, with criminal charges pending. Her policy's flamingo fines, light pollution warnings were nullified. My motion lights were even recommended for safety. But Carol didn't quit. She showed up at my door with a manila envelope, looking tired but defiant. Inside were her old HOA campaign materials and a letter accusing me of destroying her legacy. She claimed the neighborhood would collapse without her. I read it, looked at her, and said, "You could have made this place better. You chose fear." I walked inside and closed the door. That night, the neighborhood threw a barbecue in the park. Kids played, music blared, laughter filled the air. Carol's blinds stayed shut, her house a dim relic of her reign. Weeks later, a legal envelope arrived. Carol was suing me for defamation, emotional distress, and reputational damage, claiming I'd misused the tire-slashing footage. I was exhausted, not scared. The VYD called our lawyer, Emma, who called it a legal tantrum. The footage was legal, the meetings public, my actions lawful. At the preliminary hearing, the judge dismissed the case, telling Carol, "You harmed your own reputation." She stormed out. A month later, she sold her house and moved to a non-HOA community. Neighbors watched her MOVYing truck leave not a party, but closure. The HOA reformed with fair rules. Kids held bike parades. Tom flew flags. Mrs. Jenkins started a garden club. The tire scar on my driveway faded, a faint reminder of a battle won through unity, not vengeance. Sipping coffee on my porch, I breathed easy. We hadn't just ousted Carol, we'd reclaimed our home. What do you think? Did I go too far by showing that tire-slashing VY Deo publicly? Or was it the only way to stop Carol's reign? Should the neighborhood have given her a chance to explain herself? Or was her pattern of intimidation unforgivable? And what would you have done if you caught someone like Carol slashing your tires? Drop your thoughts below. Hit that like button if you felt the drama, and subscribe for more wild stories.